Afternoon. It's Friday afternoon here in Dublin, and I'm having the probably last coffee of the day. The dogs have been walked, did the final school run of the week, and winding down to the final creative momentum kind of co-working call as part of September's 30-day challenge. And that's in 2 hours. So I've got a little bit of time to sit down, and I've been talking to a couple of creative people this week, and it's really highlighted to me a lot about the idea that, the last video I put up was about starting, and getting started and building that momentum and making space for your creativity. And like I said, I've got a starter kit that helps you to do that, helps you to put your phone down and move away from the distractions, because it's so important that we get into deep work when we're able to get creative, because our creativity, all of our creative practices involve paying attention to what's often missed, and also having space for a bit of experimentation. But on the back of that, I've been having a couple of conversations about actually finishing the work. And that's where the magic really is, in taking our ideas, our thoughts, our skills, our story, our taste, and weaving that all into a piece of art or a project or an album or an art collection, a whole stack of pottery, weaving that into the game that you're developing, or the layout that you're designing for an interior design, whatever it might look like. But I kind of just wanted to hit on a few of the reasons why we struggle to finish. Why is it problematic for us as creative people to finish? And particularly creative people who have busy lives, and maybe you've got a job, maybe there's something else that you focus on in your life, and your creative passion project is, a side thing. Not even a side hustle, just the thing that you'd love to be spending more time on. And, if you were suddenly given a week off work, you might be able to go, oh, I could see myself in a cabin in the woods for a week doing this, Bon Iver style. And I know I regularly reference Bon Iver, but I think we all have this idyllic idea of just, grabbing some of our gear and heading off undisturbed to a cottage by the sea in the west of Ireland, or up into the mountains. And my friend's just back from Yosemite, and he sent me photos of his beautiful little retreat cabin there. Looked so cool. No internet, phone service. Sounded great. But we all have this idea. But it's so common to speak to creative people who don't get their projects finished. And I wanted to unpack, I even wrote some notes. Not relying on the computer today, just notes, pure old-fashioned pen and paper. And I'm going to cover at least 3 kind of scenarios why we don't finish our projects, and I'll tell you some stories around those. But I'll also give you at least 2 or 3 ideas at the end that can help you to move forward, ways in which we can overcome ourselves and our slowness or inability to finish, or maybe not inability. Inability might be too strong a word. Our lack of progress, and our lack of us being as far along the road as we would feel we'd like to be with our creative projects. And like I said it in the last video, and it's so hard when we look at Instagram, we look at social media, and we see people, maybe even this weekend releasing albums, having a show for their art or their photography, having a release date for their book to go on sale on, or they're taking pre-orders, or if they've got a prototype or a beta weekend for their app or their game. I think it can feel tough to look at that and be like, oh, I've got so many ideas and threads that still need to get woven together into that beautiful piece, but I'm not there yet. And I get it. I do. Um, a couple of months ago, I was on a call speaking to a lady. No names, because if you talk to me, I'm going to protect your privacy unless you've given me permission to use your name. And she had completely drawn and illustrated, I'd say complete might be the wrong word. She had drawn and illustrated a children's book. And it was so close to being ready to send to a publisher. But she couldn't get herself to the stage where she could actually finish. Like, the book was probably 90 or 95% done. Like, way more than the 80% that I say, hey, even get to 80% and see where it's at. She totally could have sent a copy of it to a publisher, to an agent, to somebody in the business to put their eyes on it and either give her feedback or see if they were interested in publishing it. And I saw the art. The art was stunning. I didn't get to see the whole book because we were on a Zoom call. She sent me a few photos, and the art was amazing. And I could totally see there was a real thread of beauty and something new and different in it. But she refused to finish the book not because she didn't think she'd get the book published, not because she didn't think she'd ever be able to put it out into the world. She didn't want to finish the book because she was afraid of somewhere down the line having to show up at a bookshop and do a signing and all those people being there in front of her. It didn't at all cross her mind that she might get 100 rejection letters from agents and publishers, editors who don't want to go near her book. It was all the way down the book had been published. It was getting success, was getting traction, and she would be asked to show up and do some publicity. And that was the bit that was stopping her from finishing the work. And I just think that idea that we would sabotage ourselves is actually quite common, because not for her it was a fear of showing up in public and kind of public speaking or just being in front of that many people, what that might look like, what that might entail, what she would get asked to do. And she hadn't even finished the book. She hadn't sent it to anyone. She hadn't put it in an envelope and sent it. And, it was just really interesting to go, oh, that's one of the ways in which we sabotage ourselves. Other ways we sabotage ourselves is around the idea of our own identity. So if I think of myself as a photographer or a musician, and they're both realms that I have practice in and have put work out in, then I can have this concept of myself as that type of artist. And I'm not proved wrong, because if I don't finish the work, then it's still just this concept that lives rent-free in my head. There's no having to define it any further. There's no having to benchmark myself against other people. I mean, I wouldn't stop my brain from going and doing that, but there's not a comparison. It's not like, my website without my photos, or my, social media without the output that I have. If that's not there, then it can't be scrutinized, it can't be critiqued, it can't be, compared in any way to someone else. So it's just in our head. And quite a few people I talk to have that as well. They don't finish their work because they're thinking, well, what's the next step? What do I do with it? What happens then? But yet they still dream of actually showing their work, and maybe the photography leads on to getting other jobs and potential work, potential payment, or potentially being able to sell their art, their photography, and like I've been there. But what was beautiful is when I put my work out as a photographer, I started to get asked to take photos for other people. And it quickly turned into a stream of income. But it's only because I was prepared to do the work, set up the cameras, set up the lights, do test shoots of things that interested me, and actually build a sort of kind of visual language of my own, but also to put it out. And if you look through if you go back through my Instagram, beyond where I'm talking about helping creative coaches, you'll see my photography there, my food photography and product photography, and that landed me many gigs with brands and restaurants here in Dublin. But ultimately, I wanted to focus in on something more than just raising other people's product, and I wanted to help artists get their art out into the world. So if that's you, that's why I'm here, and that's what I do. And I'd love to work with you or have a conversation. And even if we never end up working together, there's still value for you in this video. We're going to talk about a few more ways in which we trip ourselves up, and there's going to be some tips for you at the end for you to take away and work on finishing your projects. But before I even get to that bit, if you struggle with finishing your projects and there's something in it that's tripping you up, I have created a quiz. It's literally 10 multi-choice questions. It takes about 2 minutes. You just need to put in your email, your name, your email, and fill in the questions. And then I will send you back a personally recorded video with your finisher type, what might be tripping you up, and 2 or 3 tips that will give your type of finisher the kickstart that they need to get their projects back online and get working. I've done it for loads of people so far, and most people get it back to me going, oh, love that tip. That's really going to help. You don't need to use all 3 of the tips, but even 1 or 2 of them will help you to get unstuck and to keep moving forward and start building momentum as a finisher. Okay, what's next on my list? So, habits. We may have gotten ourselves into a bit of a rut or a loop or a habit of not finishing our projects. Now, there's a particular type of finisher that I like to call the people get stuck in the messy middle, and you'll know yourself if you love starting a project. You're full of energy, enthusiasm. It's exciting to either have a blank canvas or a new start, or you've got a new idea and you take it and you run with it and you get started. But you get a little bit into your project, maybe 30, 40, even 50% into your project, and that excitement at the start has faded. And you're kind of getting a little bogged down, not entirely sure where to go. Now, the habit bit is that it's often easier to go, well, rather than keeping working forward, it's easier for me to just start again. Like you get that creative buzz, you feel like you're you're a photographer, you're an artist, you're a musician, you're a game developer, you're whatever your passion is. It's easy to say that that's who you are because you've got the tools, you've got the skills, and you're using them. But I would also argue that it's even more fulfilling when you push through that, when you push through the discomfort, when you, rather than restarting in a new project, you continue on through it and you actually get it to the end. And it may be that you haven't even developed the skills of sticking at the project, or you haven't developed the skill set that you need in the later half of the project. You don't know how to finish it. Not that you haven't done it, but you mightn't have done it since you were in college studying this thing, or you mightn't have done it since you were in a group that, helped you to do that. And maybe there's ways, and a couple of things you can think about is you could find somebody to collaborate with. So for example, if you're a musician and you're getting stuck, you love the writing, you love arranging it, but you don't have the mixing and mastering skills. You can either outsource that, pay somebody to do it, or you could find someone to start a band with and make sure that they're able to take that and finish it. But they would love more and more ideas to start things. And it could just be a perfect collaboration. But also there are tools and ways to learn those things, but it's also sometimes just sticking at it and keeping going. But there'll be more tips later. And I mentioned this a little bit before, but the idea of identity is so key. It's easy to do a search about finishing projects or finishing things and get totally sidetracked online by productivity tips, how to organize yourself, like what, to use Kanban boards or to use methodologies like Scrum or, project management like Agile. And I'm going to say that because I trained as an Agile team leader and project leader. And so I've been through all that. But for creative people whose passion projects aren't their bread and butter, aren't their day job, in my experience and talking to lots of creatives at this point, it's often that we start to think of ourselves as, the name on our job title or on a business card. We think of ourselves as parents or homeowners, pet owners, before we think of ourselves as musicians, writers, photographers, game developers. When we introduce ourselves to people, we tend not to use those terms, and we're not talking excitedly about like what we do as a passion project. We talk about what our job is, 9 to 5, and that mightn't even be that exciting to us. We might have done it for a while, and we might be burnt out or like feeling drained by it. So it's not that exciting. Whereas opposed to, you could be really excited by saying, actually, I'm making a new DJ set, or I'm halfway through writing the novel that's been milling around in my head for the past 5 years. That would be exciting. But we tend not to own those identities. And then for a few people, that identity has also been hurt or damaged or even harmed by somebody in their life, usually when they're younger, like a parent or somebody in their family, maybe somebody at school, slightly crushing that dream by telling them that you're never going to make it as a fill in the blank. There's no money in. And I totally understand why, people in like our parents' generation who, potentially their parents grew up during a world war where there were shortages and everyone had to be really strategic and focused on what they did and how, things were provided and resources were thin on the ground. I can totally understand where an idea of, playing your guitar means you're busking on the street and you've got a little can in front of you and you're, expecting people's generosity to get you by. That's not the reality. And it's certainly not the reality at all. I think the internet and social media, while I'm saying they're a comparison tool, they're also a tool to gain an audience way bigger than you possibly could in your hometown. And we know from the internet that it's full of diverse communities focused in on different areas and different aspects. So even if your niche is really small, it's so much bigger when you're able to address it and connect to it on the internet. So not that I'm saying that you have to make money or a living from that, but you can definitely find yourself a community and an audience and an opportunity to feel valued and rewarded for the work that you put out there. And your definition of success in relation to this can be absolutely tapped into. I think it is a real and important time that we live in, that we're able to access this and access so much. So don't minimize that. I also think that sometimes we limit our own identities as well out of safety. A little bit like the first lady I talked about who didn't want to finish or send in her manuscript for her children's book. She was trying to defend her identity, trying to keep herself safe. And I think sometimes we do that as well, by not completing our work and not putting our work out to an audience, not sharing it beyond ourselves, keeping it hidden away. I feel like we're missing an opportunity to learn and grow. We're missing an opportunity to get feedback and tell us what's working, what's not working. And that's a vital part of our development as artists in any way. And it's why it's built into, when you do a college course on, say, fine art, there's a critique, not only with your tutors, but with your peer group, is always built into it, because that feedback helps you to learn and grow. It really speeds up what you're doing, and I mean, I said I'm constantly posting videos on YouTube. I've put up nearly 60 videos this year in the long format, and I'm regularly getting feedback, whether people watch it, whether they don't watch it, what they think of the title, what do they think of the thumbnail, what they comment, whether they click through to my starter kit or my quiz. That feedback is informing me as to if I'm hitting and talking to the subjects that people want to hear. So if you've got anything to say about my video or anything else I could make a video about, comment it below, because that's how I get feedback and that's how I learn. That's how I come back to serve you, because I'm making a video for you so that you can figure out which bit of the finishing process is tripping you up, so that we can help you get over that, so you can continue to finish your work and put it out there, and help you to find ways in which to feel comfortable, successful, fulfilled, but also then freed up of that project so you can go on and do a new one. Like, I think it's really exciting when you get to finish something and put it out, because there's now this spaciousness for the next project. And I just love that. Okay, let me see, what else have I got? I think I already talked about that idea of sabotage, but I think there's lots of ways in which we sabotage ourselves and trip ourselves up. And it really is our own heads that are doing this and putting the barriers, the blockages in our way to success and to finishing. Now, you may have a absolutely valid excuse. I don't have X piece of equipment that means I can get that done. That might be true. But if that's the one thing holding you back, then you need to do everything you absolutely can to either find it, borrow it, steal it. If that's the thing that's holding you back, it's still an excuse. And it's your job and your responsibility to overcome that and move forward. I think it's really easy to think about it in two ways. We can either allow fear get in our way, but in a lot of times, fear is so closely related to excitement and adventure that those two can easily be misconstrued. So sometimes we see a blockage and we have this innate kind of fear response to it. But it may be that you just don't exactly know yet. And it might actually be an adventure into new territory, to learn a new skill, to push into something different, to unpack something, whether that's a technical process, whether that's a piece of equipment, whether that's a mindset, whether that's the next phase of your project, or whether that's actually being out the other side and having something finished and now what do I do with it? But all of those are opportunities for adventure, opportunities to explore, and opportunities to find out something new about yourself, about your work, about your audience, about how it's received in the world, and then to loop that back as feedback into the next project. And I don't know about you, but I'm always excited for the next project and starting it. Okay, I'm going to give you at least 2 tips now to help you get your projects finished. If you're somebody who gets stuck in the messy middle and you kind of can't see your way through, actually having 2 projects on the go, this might sound counterintuitive, but actually having like a big project that you're working on that might take weeks or months, because inevitably there's going to be delays or things are going to come up. You might need to order something or you're waiting for the paint to dry, whatever it is. While that is in process, have something a little bit more bread and butter, something that maybe it's not as high an investment, it doesn't take as long time, but maybe be able to switch over to that so you can keep your creative momentum moving forwards, keep you engaged in that, and then when it gets stuck and the timing's right, you're able to flip back to the other project. Now don't take on too many. Don't take on 3, 4, 5 projects at once, because that's just going to get confusing. But being able to use that conscious shift from one project to another, when one is stalling and slowing down, to switch to the other, to keep that momentum going. So you're not feeling stalled, you're not feeling blocked, and you're able to kind of chip away at whatever it is that, is stopping the other process. Because those things happen, and it's not necessarily that you've done something wrong. That's just how creative work sometimes happens. It's never linear. It's this crazy spiraling, mess of tangled wool on the ground. Sometimes it's hard to define it, and not all the parts are your responsibility as well. Sometimes we have to wait for the inspiration and the threads to show up so that we can weave them into the work that we do. So that's one tip. The other tip, specifically if you generally finish your projects, but maybe your energy or life circumstances or kind of other things like that get in the way, and you're kind of maybe kind of type B, a finisher in training, maybe you get half of your projects done. But a tip for you is to build some accountability into your process. And that could look like either somebody you collaborate with, somebody you know and trust, somebody you went to college and studied together with. Maybe it's a partner, but it would help if it was somebody who totally gets your creative process or your project or the thing that you're working on. Even if they're not in exactly the same field, that's completely fine. But then maybe agree that, hey, on a Sunday, can we trade texts, and you can let me know how you're getting on with your project, and I'll let you know how I'm getting on with mine. And that could be you send a photo of the state of the work, you give a little update. If it's something digital and you can share and kind of show them, then let them see it and explain the process. Because what that will do is it'll take you out of your own head and make you go, oh, I'm going to have to report to my friend on Sunday. It's Saturday. I've got an hour. I should do something, because then I can at least show some progress. And it takes the momentum a little bit outside of your own control, because sometimes we feel overwhelmed by the busyness of life and our own energy status. So there are 2 tips that I'm going to give you to move forward. If you'd like to find out more about your creative finisher type, like I said, there's a quiz. There'll be a link in the description and in the pinned comment. Fill it in. It takes 2 minutes, and I will be very happy to respond with a small video to tell you what your finisher type is, and maybe you'll hear some of those tips again, but you'll hear more tips on what will help your finisher type to get your projects over the line. Great. Please have a look at my website if you'd like to know how we can work together, because that's what I do. I'm a creative guide that helps people to make progress and get their work done and out to people who are going to love it. Okay, YouTube is going to show you another video right here, but it's nearly the weekend, so I hope you're able to find time for your creativity, for resting, to be with family and friends, to rejuvenate your energy and get back to your creative project with gusto and zeal. All right, until next time, stay creative. Thanks.